So if you look at the Energy Commission, which is the regulator of the space, they publish an energy supply plan, electricity supply plan annually. If you go to their website now, you'll find the supply plans up to 2021. But GridCo, which is the institution that controls and manages the national interconnected transmission system, also publishes same. And all these institutions work together. So typically your national electricity supply plan, all the institutions, VRA, IPPs, ECG, Energy Ministry, GridCo, they all work together, and they bring the technical people together to do a technical assessment of everything and publish that plan. So this is purely a technical job that tells us where we are going, and the various issues to do with power, right? But to help all of us understand some of the things, I'd like us to start with where we've been and where we are now.
Okay.
Right. If you look at the supply plan, we had about 1,940 megawatts in 2010.
Okay.
Which is about 15 years ago. Our dependable capacity was 1,940 megawatts. And it's increased to about 4,800 megawatts in 2022, largely because of new investments. You remember, we had Car Power coming in, we had Ameri coming in, we had Asogli coming in, we had Eli Power coming in, we had the Ghana Gas coming in, we had the solar platforms, right?
Yeah.
So that enabled us to increase our dependable capacity. Now, when we say dependable capacity, what do we mean? You have a car that is designed to do 160 kilometers per hour at standard temperature and pressure, all things being equal. But this car, based on the fuel, the way you drive it, the road and everything, this car can give you maximum 100 kilometers per hour. That's a dependable speed that it can give you continuously. So you'd have extra 60 kilometers per hour, a possible opportunity of adding 60 kilometers per hour to your speed, but you do not have it, right? Or you have a 6-bedroom house. You want to use all the rooms, but for some reason, only 5 rooms are available for you. So you have dependable 5 rooms, right? So when we say dependable capacity, it's the power that we can actually produce and send to ourselves to use. So there is always installed capacity and there is dependable capacity. So if you look at installed capacity, for example, in the year 2000, our installed capacity was 1,652 megawatts. But the dependable capacity was 1,300 megawatts.
Okay.
And out of that 1,600 megawatts, hydro, which was Akosombo and Boateng, they were giving us about 1,000 megawatts. And then thermal was giving us 580 as a dependable as the installed capacity.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2010, 10 years later, dependable installed capacity became 2,100 megawatts, and our dependable capacity became 1,940, with thermal increasing because we introduced new thermal plants and retrofitted some of them. Now, I'll take you to 2016. Our installed capacity was 3,927.
Okay.
Because as at then, there were new thermal plants. So thermal actually overtook hydro in 2015, 2016. So as hydro stood at 1,580 because we had brought on Bui, we had a lot of thermal plants which took us to about 2,300 megawatts. And then we had renewable energy coming in at 23 megawatts. There were a few other renewable plants. But our dependable capacity then was 3,499 megawatts. So installed almost 4,000, dependable almost 3,500. Then you get to 2020, our installed capacity increased to 5,337 megawatts because still new plants or retrofitted plants. So there was an increase. Thermal, renewable also increased, right? But thermal, since 2013 that Bui came on, thermal has been averaging 1,500 megawatts. Bui, Boateng, Akosombo, right?
Okay.
And then 2020, our dependable capacity was 4,800 megawatts. So 5,300 installed, 4,800 megawatts installed. So that is the electricity mix. You'll be wondering which generators are giving us the power. So we just spoke about anointed electricity, right? When you buy a generator, you have a power plant because you need fuel, you need also, then it gives you electricity, right? So the power plants we are talking about, hydro uses gravity from water to turn turbines to give you electricity. And then the thermal plants burn fuel to turn the machinery to give you electricity. So that's basically the difference between the two. Now, if you look at our hydro power plants, we have Akosombo, we have Bong, we have Bui. Akosombo is 1,000 megawatts, Bong is 160, Bui is 400, and you have the Chachadu hydro, it's a mini hydro plant, which is less than a megawatt.
Okay.
And so in total, these hydro plants give you 1,500 megawatts installed capacity, but dependable is 1,300. Then you go to the thermal power plant. You have one in Takrady Power Company, TAPCO. You have Takrady International Company, TICO. You have Thermal 1 power plant, TT1PP. Thermal 2 power plant. You have Senate Energy, Bon Thermal Plant, Ameri, Sunon Asogli, Car Power, Amandi, AXA, Sen Power, and then Eli Power, Bridge Power. And then you also have Gensa Energy. All these put together gives you about 3,758. Then we have the VRA Solar in Avrongo, VRA Solar in Laura, VRA Solar in Kalio, BXC Solar, Menergy, Bui Solar, and Safisana Biogas. So all these things put together gives you power. Now, we also export some electricity to some of our neighboring countries. So if you have, say, 4,000, we don't use it all here.
Sure.
We export some to our neighboring countries. Now, why are we talking about Dumso, and why is it important that we understand some of these? Because these plants need a lot of fuel to run. The hydro plants don't need fuel to run. God gave us a lot of water. These plants need a lot of fuel to run. So our hydro plants are okay. But if you look at the thermal plants, we need about $1 billion annually to buy gas, HFO, that is heavy fuel oil, and LCO, light crude oil. Okay, now funding fuel purchases has been one of the biggest challenges for Ghana, especially the fact that we buy fuel in dollars and sell the electricity to consumers largely in cities. And at certain bandwidths, it's even subsidized, the lifeline bandwidth. And aside that too, there's a lot of technical and commercial losses in the system. People don't pay their electricity bills. When the power producers produce power, they transmit it to, so Gridco takes that power from the power producers at a certain voltage, transmit it through the big pylons we see, and then brings them to bulk supply points to be redistributed further to us. And the process of increasing voltage, stepping down voltage, changing the voltage from one form to the other or from some magnitude to the other results in some losses. And actually transporting the electricity from all those places also results in losses. That's why for a very long time, the technical committee had been saying that we should set up power plants also in the middle belt, like Kumasi. You remember we moved our Mary power plant to Kumasi to ensure that we reduce some of these transmission losses and also bring a sense of balance into the grid. So these are the power plants we have, and we need $1 billion on average annually to produce electricity, to buy fuel to produce electricity. Now this is where it gets interesting. Your average demand outlook between 2023 to 2025. In 2023, our peak demand projection was 3,987. 2024 was 4,257. 2025 is projected to be 4,491. But if you follow some of the economists like Professor John Gachi, he says if you want to run a 24-hour economy, you need more electricity, right? Because you expect more activity and more power use. So even this 4,491 projection, there are people who believe that we should take it a notch higher. If 24-hour economy is going to work, then we should take it a notch higher to say 5,000 megawatts. Now the question is, do you have enough installed capacity? Enough installed capacity to give you this 5,000 megawatts consistently, morning, afternoon, evening? And if you do, have you fixed the financial and the management related issues to be able to sell power, recover the money, and buy fuel to run the plants? Okay. Your Pong, Bui, Chachadu, and Akosombo don't need you importing fuel. God gives us the water. But your other plants need you to buy fuel. There's this bit to do with Ghana gas coming in and also ensuring that we get gas locally, because previously our gas was taken from Nigeria through the West Africa gas pipeline project. At a point, we also wanted to set up a regasification business. We wanted to import a lot of gas into the country and use that gas also to deal with these issues. So this is largely everything. We need about 5,000 megawatts of electricity if 24-hour economy is going to be successful. If Winston can come to work, close and do some other job, and go and do some other job, and uses electricity optimally, morning, afternoon, evening, we need more electricity. Do we have that? And how do we buy the fuel? Winston, so these are some of the numbers. I don't know if you have any questions.
When it comes to peak hours, for instance, I mean, per the current situation, what is our peak?
Well, the peak hours largely are in the evenings. If you look at the mix and what happens, our peak hours are largely in the evenings. Everybody is home. TV, fridges, ACs, everything is on. So that's the peak hour. Even the peak conversation, there are some people who are suggesting we should really look at it, whether it's that time that is the peak and the time we are working is the off-peak period. Okay. But you see, when we all come to work, we are all sharing the resource here. And so we've all left home. We are sharing resources. But in the evening, usually, street lighting, every other thing coming on stream takes a lot of electricity.
So what's our current peak consumption?
Our current peak demand per the projections, right, is 4,491. 2024 NDA peak demand was 4,256. Okay. But 2025, we expect to be consuming 4,491 because every year the projection is that our growth rate increases by about 7%.
Okay. So, Kojo, you're talking about the amounts that we need to buy gas and all of that. I quickly went for the 2025 Energy Outlook prepared by the Energy Commission. And there they tell you, for instance, how much you're likely to spend on gas, how much you're likely to spend on, say,
light crude oil,
HFO and all of that. So I have it here. I just would want to share it with you so that we'll continue with the analysis, because the Energy Minister and Energy and Green Transition Minister had indicated that we don't have fuel. We needed to buy oil. I don't want to go into the semantics of it, but let me just look at this. So it says that it is expected that there's about $1.2 billion will be needed for gas procurement in 2025.
Yeah.
$1.2 billion. This will translate to a monthly average of $101 million. Now, a lot of our plants would run on gas. They can run on gas and fuel, but if the gas is available, they'll run on gas. And it talks about the gas coming from the Sankofa, Eni, and all of that. Yeah. I'll bring that to you shortly. Then it continues to say HFO is needed for the running of the AXA plant.
Exactly.
So this particular document makes provision for the running of HFO for the running of the AXA, and it says it will be procured at an expected delivery price of $90 per barrel. Expected. We're going to check the price right now. So that will be about $30 million being required to buy HFO.
Yeah.
So what this means is that the total monthly cost for both HFO and oil, it's about a little over $100 million
every month.
In total, we're going to need 1,248,000,000 the whole year to buy gas, let me just say fuel, for our thermal plants. The whole year. This is the Energy Commission of Ghana. Energy Outlook 2025. This is not me saying it. So if monthly we need 120 over a little over $100 million, why is that so much of a problem for us? I mean, I don't get it. So this whole consistent reminder of we need 1 something billion, as if today we must raise $1 billion to buy oil. I am sorry. The Energy Commission has made it very clear. In fact, that is page 17 of the 2025 Energy Outlook. Paragraph 2.3.2, fuel price and cost. That is it. So I think something must be wrong somewhere. Finance shouldn't be a problem.
Is it that we are not collecting enough money from ECG, from NETCO, and the other bulk buyers of power to be able to buy this monthly? Now, if we are not collecting enough money, Winston, what are we doing to fix this problem? You know, when ECG came here the last time, we asked whether they are putting in place strategies to deal with the power theft. For example, in your neighborhood, how does ECG know the total volume of power they've sent to you, your general Abokobi area, to be able to inform them whether people are stealing or not stealing power? And if they did that, how do they intend to trace the people stealing power?
Yeah.
So that this problem of those having to pay more because of inefficiencies in the system is removed.
So, I mean, you're very right. It's one of the things we have to look at. But you see, I've also seen something here. Now, it says fossil fuel risk. And I like, research, because it actually would tell you what to expect.
Yeah.
Currently, all thermal power plants in Ghana, except some units of AXA plant, run on natural gas as their primary fuel. About 80% of the thermal plants are dual fueled, with their secondary fuel being liquid fuels, LCO and DFO. These plants provide strategic options for generations in instances where gas supply interruptions occur due to what? Planned and unplanned maintenance of gas facilities. Listen to this carefully. In 2025, significant gas supply challenges are expected due to what? Major planned, Kojo, major planned maintenance activities. I'm going to be sharing those activities shortly. Consequently, it will be essential to either increase gas supply from import and available domestic sources or procure liquid fuels to ensure the continued operation of the dual-fueled thermal plants during these maintenance periods. The point simply here is, this is a document that is an outlook into 2025. The outlook into 2025 told you that there was going to be planned maintenance. It didn't say unplanned, though. Mostly planned maintenance.
Yep.
And it says because of that, it will be essential to either increase gas supply from imports and available domestic sources, which is Sankofa and AGPP, that's our Twabo gas processing plant,
Yeah.
or you procure liquid fuels to ensure the continued operation of the dual fuel thermal plants during these maintenance period. I, in my world, do not understand the difficulty in this.
Because the technical team met,
Yes.
you know what WAPCO is going to do for maintenance, Ghana Gas is going to do for you know what every unit within this mix of the energy sector players are going to do. So once you know that, you plan, unless it's an unplanned event. You plan and you know that at this point you are going to get this, at this point you are not going to get this, because, for example, different plants run on different fuels, like you said. Takoradi Power Company runs on oil and natural gas. So if you know that we are going to have natural gas issues in September, for example, within that enclave, you plan to get oil on standby, don't you? The Takoradi International Company, TICO, also runs on oil and natural gas. I nearly said national gas. Asogli runs on gas. Tema Plant 1, oil and gas. 2, oil and gas. Senate, oil and gas. Pontema Plant, oil and gas. Aomasu Thermal, which is Ameri, gas. Car Power, gas and HFO. AXA, HFO, gas. Sempower, oil and gas. Amandi, so all of them.
And you see, again, I go to the recommendations. And this would shock you. Kojo says, the following recommendations are made when it comes to electricity. Overdrafting of hydropower plants must be strictly avoided to ensure sustainable operations. Accordingly, the allocated hydro generation targets for Akosombo and Kpong should not be exceeded. In the event of higher than anticipated inflows, generation plans should be reviewed and adjusted in collaboration with relevant stakeholders. Then that's point 2. We're getting home now. Security and adequacy of fuel supply to thermal plants remain the single most important risk to power supply reliability in the country. This is Energy Commission.
So the thing, it's when it comes to the thermal plants, it's not an engineering problem.
It's a money problem. It's a money problem.
I nearly said procurement. I don't know.
It's a money problem. Let me continue. I mean,
thermal plants, the gas availability, the planning and the provision of gas and fuel for the plants, right? And then for the hydro plants, the risk is that we are overdrafting. Overdrafting is when we use a lot more water to ensure that we try to optimize the production of electricity from the thermal plants. What that does is that we draw too much water. So if we don't get enough rain or enough inflows within the rainy season, then the levels drop. And instead of, say, 4 turbines at Akosombo running consistently, we may have to reduce the turbines you are running. So Akosombo has about 6 turbines. And so overdrafting is where we know that right now it may be unsustainable to run all 6 turbines because we will draw a lot more water and not be able to consistently run all 6 over the period. So those are some of the challenges and concerns being raised.
And they continue. Since you are an engineer, you know these
I'm
things.
not here to.
That last...
based on GTech, and I always say this, if you've not gone to the Ghana Institution of Engineers, written the exam, been inducted as a fellow, as a member, I won't hold myself as an engineer.
Okay.
Never. Or severe. Never.
So let me continue. It says, in this regard, it is strongly recommended that all stakeholders work together and timely to ensure that the fuel supply is adequate and secure. And one of the things we say in finance and accounting is planning. Once you know what is expected of you, so at every point in time, I know what I must get in order to function. You must make the funds available. Point 3 says, consequently, the Commission recommends that when domestic gas supply is insufficient to meet demand, increasing imports from Nigeria should be pursued first. Purchasing liquid fuel, such as LCO and DFO, should be the last fuel supply option due to the high cost and environmental impact. This is the recommendation of the Energy Commission.
So we should always prioritize gas.
Yes.
And so in our planning, we need to find all the standby sources of gas for whenever we have any issues. Right?
Yeah.
And then if we don't get it and doomsday is imminent, then we can rush in and bring in the liquid fuels.
Exactly.
Okay.
But then it continues also and says, quantities, listen to this carefully, quantities of liquid fuels, LCO, HFO, and diesel, therefore, need to be procured, Kojo, and stored. See, procured and stored for use at the respective dual-fired thermal plants in case of instances of gas supply interruption. So they are telling you that you must prepare for it. So at no point in time would you show up and tell me we have 2.6 days left.
and this thing is planned ahead.
Exactly.
Right? The supply plan is planned. The technical team meets to work on this. So, based on this, what has been the strategy so far this year to ensure that we get the fuel?
Exactly.
Is it a money issue? If it's a money issue, how are we resolving it? For example, at this point that the cedi is appreciating against the dollar, it's actually going to be cheaper for our power producers to produce power.
Yeah, unless we have gone hedging. But I'm not sure.
Exactly.
But I'm not sure. But let me even add 0.5. Due to the growing electricity demand, there is a need to make medium to long-term arrangements to increase gas supply volumes to enable more thermal generation to avoid excessive drawdown on Akosombo and Bui hydro facilities. Now, at this point, just listen to the Energy Minister. I want you to listen to the Energy Minister, John Jinapor. I'll come back. I'll share something with you. Listen to him.
This year alone, government spent over 24 billion cedis in energy sector. Either you call it subsidies, under recoveries, or shortfalls. This year, it is estimated at over 30 billion in terms of the shortfall. Yesterday, we had a session with the finance minister, and a lot of the people here were there. We require about $1.1 billion to procure liquid fuels alone. Unfortunately, and the PRC is here, the liquid fuel is not part of the tariff structure. And so you will be buying close to $15 billion of liquid fuel, and that has to be paid by the central government because it's not part of the tariff structure. As if that is not enough, what you call the reserve margin, which is a necessity because you just don't bring plants to meet exactly what you consume. What if one plant goes off for maintenance or any situation? That is not also part of the tariff structure. More importantly, the tariff itself, ECG is unable to collect all the monies. And so you're having a deficit of about 2 billion cedis every month when it comes to ECG's collections. When you add that deficit and you add the fuel, which is not part of the pass-through, you are looking at over 30 billion. Car Power has just sent us a letter that by 18th, they will shut down the plant because we owe them more than $400 million. IPPs alone, we owe them $1.7 billion. And so it's serious. Frank with you, Chairman, today as I sit here, this morning my headache is how to get the next parcel of liquid fuel. The fuel we have to take us 2.6 days. We've placed order for fuel, but it has to be paid. We've procured some fuel on credit and working with the Ministry of Finance to pay. But the truth is that the Ministry of Finance also has its limits. And so we'll be going to Cabinet to discuss how we can improve on the sector. And that is why we are pushing for some private sector participation in ECG's operations. It does not entirely solve the problem, but it takes us to another level. Because if the collections are reduced from the 40% to say 5%, it means that we'll be collecting more. Cabinet has also adopted a position, and we'll brief you, Chairman. All MMDAs are supposed to pay for their electricity bills. They have to budget for it. We've identified what we call critical institutions. They include the health sector, the education sector, the security agencies, and the presidency. Even with that, so if you take the health sector, is the theaters, the laboratories, the wards that will be exempted. If you take the educational institutions, dormitories are not part, restaurants are not part, only lecture theaters. And so we've classified that, and Cabinet is granting the approval and will publish that. Even what we term as critical institutions, the Minister of Finance will have to budget for it and pay.
So that's Energy Minister John Jinapor. And look, like I've shared with you, what we need for the whole year, based on the primary usage, is what? $1.2 billion. Now, where there is a challenge, and for purposes of emphasis and analysis, I always like to go back and quote the source document. So these are not my words. Okay, this becomes as a source document, because sometimes when you're paraphrasing, people say you didn't paraphrase correctly in a country that is full of politics. Okay, now, this is the Energy Commission in the energy sector outlook. it is expected the weighted average cost of gas will remain at, so they've given the expectation, at $8 per MMBTU. Thus, about $1.217 billion will be needed for gas procurement in 2025.
This year.
This translates to a monthly average of 101.46 million. HFO for the running of AXA plant to be procured at an expected delivery price of $90 per barrel, and about $30.99 million will be required to procure HFO. Overall, an amount of 1.248 billion is required to purchase fuel for thermal power generation in the whole of 2025. So figure 12 here that I have presents the monthly cost of natural gas and HFO. It's here. And it is in May that we are expected to purchase the most. That is close to 120 million for natural gas and HFO. However, they talk about the fact that currently all thermal plants in Ghana, except some units of AXA, run on natural gas, which means about 80% of them are also dual fueled. However, in 2025, significant gas supply challenges are expected due to major plant. The key word here is plant maintenance. And as a result,
So we should expect
yes, we know
the
these
days, the times, and the
Exactly.
impacts.
We have
so we
planned
can
them.
plan to deal with that.
Yes, and it says consequently it will be essential to either increase gas supply from imports and available domestic sources, that's Sankofa and Atwabo gas processing plant, or procure liquid fuels to ensure the continued operation of the dual fueled thermal plants during these maintenance period. How does the liquid fuels become the mainstay? Why? How is that the case? Something for me just does not add up here. If it's a financial problem, we need to know. If it's an engineering problem, we need to know. But of course, you have been told that this is what you are expected to do within the course of the year. In any case, you have reserves that you can fall on when it becomes necessary. In fact, this is a government that has talked about the fact that the whole conversation about the take or pay, whether you take or you pay, that kind of arrangement should help us talk more about a 24-hour economy. So those that are prepared to run a 24-hour economy will be assisted to do so by being provided with cheap electricity. And we have said the last time we had the Joy News and Amalgam of Professional Bodies Speaker series, David Ofosu-Dotte talked about how we should be thinking about increasing even power generation to 20,000 megawatts.
Yeah.
We don't industrialize it. So what's the problem?
The problem is in the amount of power being produced and the amount of power being sold. Okay? And the problem is with ECG, its operations, and the matters therein. I'll give you an example. If you look at their tariff proposals to the PURC, they mentioned exchange rate losses as a whole lot of things, right? And all those things. And then they also give us a sense of their system losses. For example, in 2021, they bought 14,000 gigawatt hours of power, right? They sold 10,000. So we lost 29% of the power they bought. 2024, they bought 16,000 gigawatt hours of power. They sold 13,000. We lost 21%. If you look at their annual report, the latest are found on their website is the one for 2023. If they have 2024, please, they should share. Now, if you look at revenue and cost structure, for example, they sold 2023, they sold 14.9 billion Ghana cedis worth of electricity. Public lighting levy brought in 191 million Ghana cedis, and that's also a conversation you must have. 191 million Ghana cedis. We hardly have our street lights working. Government and other contribution and amortization, 32 million. Street lighting shortfall recovery, 566 million. reconnection and meter maintenance fee 53 million. So their revenue total was 15.7 billion. Okay, and there was a government of Ghana grant of 6 billion. Now, if you look at their direct costs, they bought power worth 19.5 billion in 2023, and they sold 14.9 billion Ghana cedis in power.
How is that possible?
How is that not possible? Are people not stealing power?
How do you buy power and sell power at a loss?
Power purchase is 19.5 billion. They sold 14.9 billion. The previous year, they bought 13.9 billion Ghana cedis worth of power. That is 2022. They sold 8.1 billion. All right. Transmission costs in 2023 was 1.5 billion. In 2022 was 1.1 billion. Operations, their cost increased from 178 million Ghana cedis to 285 million Ghana cedis. Let's stay with the power purchases and sales. If I go and buy rice at 500 cedis in a Suchari, I cannot transport it to Accra and sell for 400 cedis.
It cannot be
and
done.
Stay in business.
No.
You need to find a way to pay for your transportation costs, your time and your margin, your packaging costs, your sales and marketing costs, for all that to be higher than your purchase price to be able to make money.
And you see, Kojo, I use this analogy, a very simple thing I do in my farm. When we wean the pigs, okay, and we put them on, we start feeding them. At some point in time, they grow and they get to the levels of others. But we actually separate their feeding. So we buy their feed separately. So we have, let me call them a cohort of, pigs that you say, okay, so these ones, they're about, say, 40, 50. We will feed them because we want to track how much we spent on them. We want to track how much we sold them for. And then look at, okay, so this is how much they were sold. This is how much we spent. What margins have been made. How much of it has gone into expansion or into the purchase of feed for, say, the breeding stock, which you're not selling, and all they're doing is producing.
And you track that religiously.
Yes. Because at every point in time, and so the last time I was telling you that when I changed the feed, it's actually cost me more. And so you're trying to, break even as they get a little bit of money and plow it back into the farm. How in God's name do you buy power and sell and make losses continuously?
Because there are too many dynamics, too many types of meters, a lot of procurement, a lot of different things happening within the system.
My brother, what I care about.
And ECG says that they sometimes they also provide social service.
What I care about. What I care about.
And that the street lighting levy cry is not enough for them.
What I care about.
So the 19.5 they bought, they will make a loss.
What I care about the most is that if people are in charge, tasked with managing an entity, and they are making losses continuously, they have just told you they have no business being there.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you keep them there? Then you tell me to be paying more. I mean, how? And ECG, if they are not giving you the right tariffs, because you cannot go and buy tariff and come and sell it cheaply for me.
Let me read this press release.
Before I get onto the phone lines.
Yes, from Indra Company Limited. Why am I reading this? We are talking about monitoring, measurement, billing, and reducing costs, right? If I remember very well, the time ECG acquired this management software, it cost us about 6 million. I've forgotten whether it was dollars or cedis. And what we were told was that it was going to make them very efficient with everything, including billing. Now, the statement which was released, I'll take out some of the and come to the ECG portion. It says ECG is the largest electricity distribution company in Ghana and has nearly 2.8 million customers, which represents 80% of the nation's entire market. Now the amount has even been stated here. For the contract for nearly 8 million euros strengthens the company's position, the company selling the software to us, in the African energy sector and its leadership as a global provider. More than 140 companies in over 30 countries have implemented these management solutions for energy and utilities. Now, this commercial management system is designed to automate and optimize a company's entire commercial cycle from readings, billing, and collection to providing customer service, which ECG is perfect. You know, there are different levels of customer service. When you have a problem and you call them, they will listen to you. As to whether it will be solved immediately, that's the other leg of the customer service issue. So to providing customer service, managing service orders, and service indicators. It also helps process registrations, cancellations, contract modifications, and information requests through virtual channels, and it speeds up decision making by providing easy access to better quality information. Its implementation will allow ECG to optimize how its business is managed while reducing costs through process automation. It will help shorten reading, billing and collection times, and also prevent energy losses and fraud. On the other hand, the power company's customers will have access to more service channels, they will receive assistance faster, and they will benefit from improved service thanks to the accuracy of the information provided by the system.
Kojo, I am told that we have the General Manager, External Communications, ECG, Dr. Charles Ni Ayiku on the line.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be talking to him about areas that went off and whether they're back on. But maybe he has a point or two to make about what we're talking about. Dr. Ayiku, good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much and good morning to you and your listeners.
Great. Before we get into the conversation about the restoration of power to areas that were affected by the flood and all of that, do you want to make any point about what we have been discussing about power challenges?
Well, if I have to make a very quick point about the challenges, I would want to quickly talk about some key interventions being made by the company.
Okay.
And this includes the installation of a mobile substation at Chado, the injection of distribution transformers across the ECG operational areas, the upgrade of power transformers at 7 substations in Accra and the Volta regions. That's Lashibi, La Adenta, Peshinungwa, Bachona, and reach that for Accra and then Dinu in the Volta region.
Okay.
The refurbishment and upgrade of the Obuasi substation and the installation of an additional 20 by 26 MVA power transformer at Tuabo in Takwa, which is supposed to be completed by the end of next month. The Asebu primary substation, which was completed about a month ago, and has significantly enhanced power reliability in Asebu and its surrounding communities. Yes, the issue about the low voltage in the Volta region has also been enhanced. So the low voltage and
the low voltage is not just in the Volta region. Dr. Ayiku, the low voltage that you talk about is not just in the Volta region. In areas like in Accra, areas like Marahia, even in my area,
so that's why I mentioned the injection of our distribution transformers within these areas and the upgrade of our power transformers. So all of these things are some key interventions being put in place by the company. So, but when you move to the issue that happened on Sunday, the 18th of May, as at last night, we've restored power to all the affected areas. And I would like to inform our customers and the general public that if you are within these areas, that's the Boateng Stadium area, the affordable housing, the Boateng Township, the Little Roses area, Lakeside, Nana Chrome, Kisiman, the Mipilatu, Christian Village, School Junction, Melcom, Maijo, Zoom Lion, University Farms, Tasagu Third Gate, Legon Hills, Santor, Blue Kiosk, Madina Islam University area. So you should kindly call our 4th center or our call center on 0302 611 611 or also contact us via our social media handles via ECGGH official. You can also go to our website ecg.com.gh for more information. You can also follow us on our WhatsApp channel. So when you go to the website, you can scan or join our WhatsApp channel for up-to-the-minute updates of all of our activities.
Okay. Dr. Ayiku, before you go, because so thank you very much for that update. And listeners, if you still have challenges, just share it with us or call the numbers that he's put out. But because you talked about, the things you're doing, I'm just curious because we're, reviewing lots of information and lots of data. And one that, shocked many of us, that you bought power in 2023 for 19.5 billion and sold for around 15 billion. How is that possible?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the documents that you are reading from.
It's in your 2023 annual report.
And my very good friend, Sami Odami, didn't inform me about making those figures ready. So
that's fair.
I don't have them at the moment. But what I'll do is that I'll get back to you so that we can address that.
Exactly. I agree with you. That's fair. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Charles Ni Ayiku, who's General Manager, External Communications, ECG, joining us this morning here on the Super Morning Show. Kojo, we have just 2 minutes to 9. We need to take a short break.
Yeah.
When we return, we'll get into a conversation.
Even our power goes off sometimes. Yes, so the conversation must go off small.